The hallway was silent, except for the muffled sobs coming from behind a half-open door. Sophia hesitated for a moment, afraid she might be intruding, but something in that fragile sound pulled her forward. Slowly, she pushed the door wider. Inside sat a boy, no older than 9, curled up on the edge of his bed. His small hands clutched a photograph so tightly that the edges were already torn. His cheeks were wet with tears, his eyes red from crying too long. "Hey," Sophia whispered softly, kneeling down so she wouldn't startle him. "Are you okay?" The boy looked up, startled, and quickly wiped his face with the sleeve of his shirt. I didn't hear you come in." His voice was thin, shaky. "I was just cleaning," she explained gently. "But then I heard you. Want to tell me what's wrong?" He hesitated. The silence between them felt heavy. Finally, he lifted the photograph, his hand trembling. "It's my mom. She left last year, and I think my dad doesn't care anymore." Sophia's chest tightened. She took the photo carefully. It showed a smiling woman holding the boy when he was much younger. His eyes in the picture were full of light, so different from the sadness she saw now. "What's your name?" she asked, trying to smile. "Lucas." "Well, Lucas," she said softly, "you know what my grandmother used to tell me? When the people we love aren't around anymore, we don't lose them. We carry them here." She placed her hand gently over her heart. Lucas frowned, confused. "But how do you carry someone in your heart?" "By remembering their smile. By keeping their voice inside you. Every time you laugh, every time you're brave, it's like they're still with you." The boy's lips trembled. "But my dad doesn't even look at me anymore. It's like I don't exist." Sophia felt a sting in her eyes. She reached for his hand. "That's not your fault. Sometimes adults forget how to show love. Sometimes they're just hurting in ways they don't know how to explain." Lucas blinked back tears. "Do you think he still loves me?" Sophia squeezed his hand firmly. "I think you're the kind of boy no father could ever stop loving. Maybe you just need someone to remind him how." The boy looked at her with a flicker of hope. For the first time that night, his sobs quieted. He clutched the photo to his chest and whispered, almost to himself, "I wish my dad could hear you say that." Sophia's heart sank. She didn't know that in the very next moment, someone else had been listening all along. At the doorway, hidden in the shadows, stood a tall man in a suit. His tie was loosened, his shoulders slumped from the weight of another exhausting day. His eyes, however, were fixed on one thing: his son, Lucas, sitting with the housemaid. Diego clenched his jaw. He hadn't heard his son speak with that much emotion in months. Not to him, not to anyone. The sight burned inside him, part envy, part shame, part something he couldn't even name. Sophia noticed a shift in the air. When she turned her head, she froze. Diego was there, watching, his face unreadable. "Mr. Alvarez," she stammered, rising quickly to her feet. I didn't hear you come in." Lucas stiffened the moment he heard his father's voice. He pressed the photograph tightly to his chest, his small body trembling. Papa," he whispered, almost as if afraid. Diego stepped inside, his gaze cold, but his eyes betrayed the storm inside. "Lucas, it's late. You should be in bed." The boy lowered his head. The warmth in his voice disappeared in an instant. "Yes, sir." He placed the photo gently on a nightstand and slid under the blanket, silent. Sophia's heart ached. She could see it clearly, the way Lucas shrank at his father's presence, the way Diego's words carried no softness. She wanted to say something, but the air was thick with unspoken rules. "I'll finish tidying downstairs," she said, clutching her broom and trying to slip past him. But Diego's voice stopped her. "Wait." She turned slowly. His eyes were sharp now, his tone firm. "Who told you to involve yourself with my son?" Sophia swallowed hard. He was crying. "Alone. I couldn't just ignore." "You were hired to clean, not play therapist," Diego interrupted, his voice rising slightly. Lucas flinched under the blanket. The sound of his father's anger pierced him like a blade. Sophia steadied her voice, refusing to back down. "With respect, sir, I didn't play anything. Your son needed someone to listen. If that's a crime, then maybe you should ask yourself why he feels so invisible." The words slipped out before she could stop them. Silence filled the room. Diego's face hardened. For years, he had buried his guilt under layers of work and distance, convincing himself that providing money was enough. But hearing a stranger speak the truth cut deeper than he expected. "Careful," he warned, his voice low. "You don't know what you're talking about." Sophia met his gaze. "Maybe not, but I know what I saw. A little boy crying for love he doesn't get." Lucas's breath caught. His small voice broke through the silence. "She's right, Papa." The words hit Diego like a blow. His chest tightened, and for a second, he couldn't breathe. His son hadn't spoken to him so directly in months, and now, when he finally did, it was to defend a stranger. Diego turned away, his fists trembling. He wanted to shout, to assert control, to push everyone away like always. But the truth had been spoken aloud, and there was no taking it back. Sophia gathered her courage. "You don't have to like me, but you should listen to him, because one day you'll realize you push him so far away that even love can't reach him." Her words hung in the air like a sentence. Diego's breathing grew heavy. His pride battled with his pain, and for the first time, he wasn't sure which would win. The silence after Sophia's words was deafening. Diego's fists unclenched, then tightened again, as if he were wrestling with invisible chains. He finally muttered, "Enough. Lucas, sleep. And you." His eyes cut towards Sophia, sharp as glass. "Meet me in the kitchen. Now." Sophia followed him downstairs, her chest pounding. The kitchen lights hummed faintly, casting cold shadows across the marble counters. Diego stood by the window, his back to her, staring into the night. For a long time, he said nothing. Finally, his voice broke the silence. "You don't know me. You don't know my son. So don't presume to understand what happens in this house." Sophia stepped closer, her voice steady. "You're right. I don't know your story, but know what I saw. And I know what loneliness looks like because I've lived it too." Diego turned, his face tense, but there was a flicker of curiosity behind his sternness. "My father died when I was little," Sophia continued. "My mother worked 3 jobs and still barely looked at me. I used to cry at night, thinking no one in the world cared whether I was alive. Until one neighbor, a janitor of all people, sat down and listened. Just once. That night I felt seen, and it changed me. That's why I couldn't ignore your son." Her voice trembled, but her eyes were unflinching. Sometimes one act of kindness can rescue a child from a lifetime of silence. Diego exhaled sharply, as though her words struck something buried deep. He opened his mouth, but a sound from upstairs interrupted them. Lucas's small voice, calling softly, "Papa." Both of them froze. The boy stood at the top of the staircase, clutching his photo again, his bare feet peeking from under the pajamas. His eyes, wide and glistening, locked onto his father. Do you ever think about her?" Lucas asked quietly. Diego's chest tightened. He hadn't expected the question. He swallowed hard, his voice uneven. "Every day." "Then why don't you talk about her?" Lucas's voice cracked. "Why don't you talk to me?" The boy's words shattered Diego's composure. For a moment, the strong businessman, the man who built walls around his heart, looked like he might collapse. But instead of answering, he turned away, hiding the tears threatening his eyes. "Lucas, go back to bed." "No!" The word burst out of Lucas like a scream. "I'm tired of going to bed alone. I'm tired of pretending I don't care. You never hug me. You never laugh with me. Mama used to, but you..." His voice broke, and he clutched the photo tighter, sobbing. "You make me feel like I'm not even your son." The words echoed through the house like thunder. Diego staggered back, pale as stone. Sophia pressed her hand to her mouth, her heart breaking for the boy. She wanted to rush forward, but she knew this was a moment between father and son. Diego's lips trembled. He whispered, almost to himself, "If only you knew the truth." Sophia caught the words. "The truth?" she asked sharply. Diego froze, realizing he'd said too much. Lucas lifted his head, eyes wide with confusion. "What truth, Papa?" Diego's face turned ashen. His secret, the one he had buried for years, the one that kept him distant, was clawing its way to the surface. His voice cracked, but he couldn't bring himself to finish. Sophia stepped forward, her eyes narrowing. "Whatever it is, he deserves to know." Hiding it is only destroying both of you. Lucas clutched the photo like a shield. His voice shook, but he was firm. Papa, please, don't hide from me anymore. Diego's body trembled as though the weight of years pressed on his shoulders. He looked at his son, then at Sophia, then back at the boy. And finally, with a voice raw and broken, he whispered, "Lucas, you're not really my son." The words cut the air like a blade. Lucas's world shattered in an instant. The room fell into silence. Lucas stood frozen at the top of the stairs, his small chest rising and falling rapidly. His lips trembled as though he wanted to speak, but no words came. "I'm not your son," he finally whispered. The photograph slipped from his fingers and fluttered down the stairs, landing between him and his father like a broken truth. Diego's face was pale, his hands shaking. "Lucas, please listen to me. It's not what you think." The boy's voice rose, desperate and sharp. "All this time you knew? You knew, and that's why you don't look at me? That's why you don't love me." Diego rushed forward, but Lucas backed away, pressing himself against the wall as if trying to disappear. "No, don't come near me." Sophia's heart raced. She moved quickly, stepping between them, her voice steady even though her own chest ached. "Diego, stop. You can't just drop something like that and expect him to understand. I didn't mean to say it." Diego's voice cracked, raw with regret. "I've tried for years to bury it, but every time I looked at him, I saw..." He broke off, unable to continue. His throat tightened with shame. Lucas's sobs grew louder. "Saw what? That I'm not good enough? That I'm just a mistake?" The words stabbed Diego like knives. He felt his knees on the staircase, head in his hands. "No, Lucas, you're not a mistake. You're the only reason I'm still breathing. But you hate me." Lucas screamed, tears streaming down his cheeks. "You hate me because I'm not really yours." The rawness in his voice cracked Sophia's heart in two. She knelt beside him, gently cupping his face. "Lucas, look at me. Listen to me." Her voice was soft but strong. "Blood doesn't make someone a parent. Love does. And whether he's scared, angry, or broken, none of that changes the truth. You are worthy of love. You are not a mistake." Lucas shook his head violently. "Then why does he act like I don't exist?" The question hung heavy. Diego finally lifted his head, his eyes bloodshot, his face streaked with tears he had fought too long to hide. He looked directly at his son, his voice hoarse. "Because I was a coward." Sophia glanced at him, startled by the admission. Diego continued, his voice trembling. "When your mother died, she told me the truth, that you weren't mine by blood. I felt betrayed, broken. Every time I looked at you, I thought of her lies. I wanted to love you, Lucas. I swear I did, but the pain was stronger. So I buried myself in work. I kept you at a distance. Not because you weren't enough, but because I wasn't." Lucas's sobs softened in his shaky breaths. He stared at his father with wide, searching eyes. "So you never wanted me?" Diego crawled up the steps until he was eye level with the boy. His voice cracked into a whisper. "I wanted you more than anything, but I didn't know how. I thought if I stayed away, the hurt would fade. But instead, I hurt you." His hand trembled as he reached out. "And that's the greatest mistake of my life." For a long moment, Lucas didn't move. He looked at his father's outstretched hand, then at Sophia, as if silently asking whether he could trust it. Sophia gave him the smallest nod, her eyes glistening with tears. Slowly, hesitantly, Lucas placed his tiny hand in Diego's. The man broke. He pulled his son into his arms, clutching him tightly, his tears falling onto the boy's hair. "I'm sorry," he whispered again and again. "I'm so sorry." Lucas buried his face against his father's chest, his small voice muffled but desperate. "Don't leave me again, Papa. Please." Diego tightened his embrace, his heart cracking open in a way it hadn't for years. "Never. I'll never let you feel alone again." Sophia stood silently, tears streaming down her cheeks. She had never seen such raw pain and such fragile hope in one moment. But deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. Secrets don't vanish in a single night. Wounds that deep don't heal without scars. And in the shadows of Diego's powerful world, There were people who would exploit such weakness. As father and son clung to each other, Sophia whispered to herself, almost like a warning. The hardest part hasn't even started yet. The night air outside was heavy with silence, but inside the house something had shifted. For the first time in years, Lucas fell asleep, not with tears, but wrapped in his father's arms. Sophia lingered in the doorway, watching them. She could leave quietly, let the moment belong to them. But as she turned, Diego's voice stopped her. Sophia. His tone was softer than she had ever heard. Thank you. She met his eyes, hesitant. For what? For giving me back my son, he said simply. His words trembled with truth. If you hadn't stepped in tonight, I might have lost him forever. Sophia shook her head. You didn't lose him, Diego. You just forgot how to hold on. For once, Diego smiled, small, uncertain, but real. He looked down at Lucas, sleeping peacefully, his hand still clutching the photograph on the nightstand. The boy who had feared he wasn't wanted was finally cradled, like the most precious gift. Diego brushed a tear from his son's cheek and whispered, You're mine, Lucas. Maybe not by blood, but by choice. And that's stronger than anything. Sophia's throat tightened at his words. She knew it wasn't a perfect ending. Pain leaves scars, and trust takes time. But tonight, something fragile had been reborn. The next morning, sunlight poured through the curtains, warm and golden. Lucas woke to the sound of his father humming, a broken tune, but filled with effort. He blinked in surprise. Papa! Diego smiled awkwardly. Your mom used to sing this, didn't she? Lucas's eyes widened. You remember? I never forgot, Diego whispered. He reached for his son's hand. Maybe you can teach me the rest of the song. For the first time, Lucas laughed. Not the forced laugh of a boy hiding sadness, but a pure, bubbling sound that filled the room. Sophia, standing quietly with a tray of breakfast, felt her own heart swell. It was just a beginning, but beginnings she knew were powerful. Later, as she walked to the door to leave, Diego called after her again. His voice was steady now, filled with something new. You were right, he said. One act of kindness can save a lifetime of silence. Sophia smiled. And now it's your turn to keep speaking, Diego. Don't stop. She left the house with tears in her eyes, knowing she had witnessed something rare. A man reclaiming his son, and a boy rediscovering he was loved.